Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. I'm glad to see everyone signing on. So thank you very much. This is our CES show, Consumer Electronics Show. And we usually do this in Vegas, but this year, unfortunately, we're not doing it in Vegas. But we'll be back next year. And I look forward to seeing everybody in person at some point. But it's good to see everyone signing on here. So welcome to our Silicon Global show. We have a great program lined up for you today. And I look forward to your input, your questions, and your chat. So let's move right along. Silicon Dragon is the media group that I set up about 10 years ago in 2010, and we have all of these elements to our plate of offerings. And so we have our newsletter, our mobile app, our Ask a VC Anything series that we started when COVID hit. And we've been doing that regularly. So today we have Ray Lane joining us for our Ask a VC Anything portion of this program. We do have a full program plan for you today. You can follow along here. All the great speakers who are photographed here. We have a VC, Ray Lane. We have a tech author, Maelle Gavet. We have a number of tech experts from Silicon Valley and Asia and New York joining us. We have a number of great supporters, including Nixon Peabody, and David Kaufman from Nixon Peabody will be moderating the panel on Asian innovators in a little while. KPMG is a regular supporter as well as Nixon Peabody. Darren Young will be joining us from Singapore. Invest Hong Kong is here from Hong Kong and San Francisco and New York, and I think even some from Australia. We have the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks from Hong Kong, and also Cyberport from Hong Kong. So we'll be hearing from all of these people that you see on this screen right now. And I appreciate everyone joining us. So today the program will be Ask a VC, it will be a tech chat, then we'll have a panel, then we'll have a book talk, and we'll have a pitch. So the format will be, this is a webinar format. I know some of you have been with us on our Zoom meetings, which is more interactive, but this one is a webinar because we have so many attendees. It would be, I think, very difficult to do a Zoom meeting. So we're doing it as a webinar, and you can type your questions into the chat box, and I will be monitoring those and picking out the best ones as we go along. We also will be having a poll as part of our regular program, so that's always fun. And yeah, so welcome. All right, hello Ray, how are you? Ray, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that.
Hi Ray, how are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I was muted. I didn't know I was muted.
That's okay. Well, look, we're so glad you could join us today, and you're here in Silicon Valley, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I would like to just share a few details about your background to the people who are listening in. So Ray is a real tech star and also a VC star. And he is a former partner at Kleiner Perkins, former Oracle COO, credited with the whole turnaround of Oracle. He's now managing partner of Great Point Ventures here in Silicon Valley. I love that name, Great Point. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a number of great points from Ray. He's a board trustee at Carnegie Mellon University. He's a board of director at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. He's an alum of West Virginia University, which I just visited, and also CMU, Carnegie Mellon University. So welcome, Ray.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, well, good. Well, Ray, since I mentioned West Virginia, maybe you could just share a little bit about what you're doing in West Virginia to help with an entrepreneurial culture there, and a more engineering centric culture there. Can you just talk a little bit about that before we jump into your current VC career?
Sure. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm West Virginia University, and the state of West Virginia is kind of in the region
Okay.
that I grew up in. But since I attended West Virginia, I fell in love with the state, fell in love with the people, and fell in love with the university. And I've just stayed connected with that university for a long period of time. I helped raise a bunch of money in running their capital campaign. I served on their board of governors for 8 years, and have just kept a lasting partnership. They are now an LP of our fund.
Okay.
And so personally, my wife and I have done a couple of things to help the university advance in various areas. So we funded and helped name a Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering. That was done over 10 years ago, and that has flourished. I think there's 500 graduates a year out of that department. It's become now a full-fledged department of the university.
Mm-hmm.
And recently we funded what is called the Lane Innovation Hub.
Okay.
This is an innovation hub dedicated to advanced manufacturing. So it starts with subtractive manufacturing. So using all the tools mechanical engineers use to make parts. Anything that you look around you is made with subtractive manufacturing today, on either by machining it in a 3 or 5 or 7 axis machine, which basically cuts away metal to end up with the part you see, or additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing, or various other methods. And so we've created a lab which is dedicated to each department within the College of Engineering. So mechanical, aerospace, computer engineering all have kind of their own lab. And our great hope is that it's used by engineering. It's also used by the whole university, but it also gets used by high school students in the state of West Virginia that, when exposed to it, changes their life and has them think about being an engineer. They could use advanced tools like this.
Okay.
Now,
Wow.
the third thing we did, as you're familiar with, you visited Dr. Rizai.
Sure.
So as part of the university, they have a whole neurological research center called the Rockefeller Neurological Institute. And Dr. Rizai runs that institute, and he's doing a lot of important work in chronic disease. So I wear one of these rings. It's an Aura ring. It's like everybody else could buy. But what they do is develop the machine learning and AI programs to determine what the sensitivity might be days ahead of something happening. So they can now predict 4 days ahead that something is going to change in your circadian rhythm. So you may be developing a cold, the flu, COVID, or maybe onset of Alzheimer's or congestive heart failure. That is the hope. And today the sensitivity is quite high to predict 3 to 4 or 5 days out. But the specificity is not yet as high as we'd like it. So the research dollars are going into improving specificity to determine exactly what might be coming.
Yeah, I wanted to get one of those rings. And maybe on my return visit, I'll get one of those rings so I can determine my human operating system.
That you don't need. They'll mail you a ring. Just give them your ring size.
Oh, really?
They'll send you a ring size kit, but you can sign up immediately. Yeah.
Really? Well, I thought that was really kind of breakthrough to hear about the human operating system. I've never heard that term before.
Well, while all the focus is on COVID or the pandemic and trying to determine who has it, that is not exactly what the research is designed for. It's designed for the longer term. My mother died of congestive heart failure and whatever it's called, OPCD or whatever it's called. And if she would have had help like this to determine just a few days ahead that there was something going on, and specifically it was CHP causing fluids to build up in her body, she would have avoided many trips to the hospital to have fluids drained from her system. So chronic diseases like that, dementia, other things that are onset maybe with age, can be determined earlier by knowing a pattern over years on your circadian rhythms.
So is health tech a focus of your venture fund as well?
It is.
Uh-huh.
I would say it's probably around 40% of our fund in the first two funds, and it will be in the third fund.
Right.
Whether you call it digital health or it's life sciences, we kind of start with food. So we do a lot of food tech investing all the way through therapeutics. And so the US healthcare industry is going to change enormously over the next 10 to 15 years. It's been accelerated greatly by human genome research, by CRISPR technology, by a number of technology breakthroughs. And now we can start with trying to steer people toward healthier lifestyles, better outcomes in terms of doctor-patient relationships, better health care, and finally, in older age, managing chronic disease.
Okay. Wow. So I did notice that you had a number of these companies that make meat without the animals.
Well, we have one.
Oh, just one. Okay.
Yeah, so I was the first investor in Beyond Meat back in 2011, early 2011.
Uh-huh.
It was basically a company of one person, Ethan Brown. I met him in Columbia, Missouri, at the University of Missouri, in a lab where he was extruding soy protein isolate. And what came out the other end felt like meat. It had a texture of meat, and it didn't taste a lot like meat, but it had the muscular, fibrous feel of meat. And I said, wow, if you can get this to taste like the meat you're intending to replace, chicken, pork, or beef, it's going to be a big deal. And so I invested in him very, very early, and it's been a great. I'm on the board today of Beyond Meat. I love the company. I love what it's doing, and it became a theme for us. We now are invested in 7 or 8 food tech companies that have a theme to find a villain. So with Beyond Meat, the villain is red meat, right? The cow. There's not much good about a cow other than it's might be, cute if your kids want to pet them, but they take up a lot of land. They take up a lot of water. They basically poop methane. It's not good for the environment, and red meat is just not good for you, especially when you get older. And so it's an easy target to say you could replace meat in your diet with plants. And Beyond Meat relies on pea protein. So when you're eating Beyond Meat, you're basically eating pea protein. And so we've decided to play that theme out. What other villains could we find? Sugar is a major villain. So we invested in a company called Myco Technology, which uses mushroom mycelium to substitute or supplement sugar. So you don't have to take in as much processed sugar to make products sweet. And so it basically fools your bitter taste buds to think things are sweeter than they really are. We invested in
really?
Hero. Wow. We invested in Hero Foods, where the villain is carbs. So they can make anything that you can make with flour without carbs. So no carbs. And of course, if you have no carbs, your body doesn't have the opportunity to turn them to sugar. And so it's a huge, huge benefit. So that's kind of the thesis or the theme around our food tech investing. And yeah, we really love these companies.
Okay, I just bought some high protein pasta, uh, and I guess it has lentil flour, lentil something or other that gives it the protein. Um,
Yeah,
but anyhow,
you don't have to go to a cow or a pig or a chicken to find protein. Protein, that's basically the cow's a processing plant to take the plant protein and deliver it to us in muscle tissue.
right, right. So, are you a vegetarian?
I'm not. I don't eat a lot of meat, but I'm not against eating it either. So so if my daughter who loves to go to stop and In-N-Out brings a burger home, I'll eat it. And so I'm not a vegetarian, but I eat very little red meat.
Okay. And how are you dealing with the COVID, the remote working situation? How are you managing to meet entrepreneurs, do deals? Is it really, really totally different for you today than it was a year ago?
If somebody would have told me a year ago this is what we're going to be doing, I would have said there's just no way. It can't be done because it's so important. We tend to be most VCs or a lot of VCs tend to be technology first
Yeah.
and entrepreneur second. We tend to be entrepreneur first. So we'd rather have a good idea led by a great entrepreneur than a great idea led by a good entrepreneur. And so we need to meet that person. We need to really spend a lot of time with them. So I thought it would be very, very difficult to do this. Like everybody else, we're no different. We've learned to cope with it. So we are now making investments remotely. We have to. It is, just so we spend a lot of time. We're probably doing more diligence. We spend a lot of time in Zoom meetings like this. Try to get as much feel for the team as we can get. But we need things to come back to. We'll never return to what was normal. I think most companies will return to a hybrid model where you'll have, you can actually have one-on-one or personal meetings, but I think Zoom is here to stay.
Right. So I wanted to mention that since you're interested in food tech companies, we actually have one that's doing a pitch later in this program, Avant Meats. So she's developed a fish fillet totally out of protein. So she is from Hong Kong and she's going to be on the program later on. So
That's
might be
great.
something.
We've seen over the last couple of years, I think we've seen everything made from protein. And I think I wish her a lot of luck. A lot of my team is on this seminar and hopefully one or
Okay.
two of them stay on and hear her pitch.
Oh, good.
But we've seen shrimp, fish, pork. We've seen lab grown, plant-based hybrids. And I think it's wonderful. I think the more of this, the better. And 10 years from now, I really think the plant-based or lab-based protein delivery system will be bigger than the animal system we have today.
Okay. In your own career, are you more of an entrepreneur, engineer, VC, operating exec? Seems like you've done all of these roles, but which one of them really is you?
I never consider myself an entrepreneur. I've only started one company. My partner, Andrew, has started 9 companies. My partner, Ashok, has started 5 companies. Those are entrepreneurs, or maybe even serial entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but I do appreciate after 20 years in the venture business, I can appreciate what the entrepreneur does. I've got a lot of experience to work with an entrepreneur. I am very founder friendly. I want to see the founder lead the company for a long, long time. until it's obvious to the founder that he needs help or she needs help to bring in resources and maybe even a CEO. But it's really hard to replace the founder spirit, the founder mission, the value system that drove them to want to change the world. And so I can appreciate that. But to answer your question directly, I am the last one you mentioned, an operating exec. So I've run large companies. I've consulted. I spent 12 years with Booz Allen consulting with Fortune 500 companies. I ran a lot of Oracle, and so that's probably what I do best, and I try to downscale all of that experience to the entrepreneur.
Okay, so why did you become a VC?
Great question. So so when I left Oracle, it was like, okay, well, I'm about 50 years old. Never need to work again, but I probably will work till I'm 100 if I'm lucky to live that long. But what do I do? And I had all these opportunities to be CEO of Fortune 500 companies or big tech companies or even a major government job. And it really tested me. And I got a call from a friend over at Kleiner Perkins.
Okay.
Say, hey, why don't you come over here and hang out for a little bit and just see what we do? And I said, I'm not a big fan of venture capitalists because venture capital was a source of stealing a lot of executives away from Oracle and promising them the moon with these startups options and, especially prior to 2000. And so I really don't understand what you guys do, other than, fund some of these startups. I appreciate the entrepreneurs, but this was right as the crash happened. I left Oracle in 2000. Right at the peak, we were probably worth over $200 billion. And so I went over and I spoke to several of the partners of Kleiner. And the more I talked to them, the more it made sense that at my age and my experience, I made more sense in venture capital than most venture capitalists made because they were younger. They were less experienced. And I said, if this position is basically find great entrepreneurs chasing disruptive ideas in big markets and then helping them build a company, that's what I know how to do. So if that's what the job is, boy. And then there was a personal thing that I in 1995 remarried, and we had the year 2000 we had a new baby and a 2-year-old. And I said, I think I spent my entire career traveling. I was always away. And I said, I have an opportunity to do this again. And while you work very hard, I think the venture capital industry is an opportunity to work as hard as you want to work. It's not an easy job, but it doesn't require a lot of travel.
Okay.
So I thought this was the combination of meeting the folks, the partners at Kleiner, and the no travel personal end of it. I spent 14 years at Kleiner before Andrew, one of the CEOs, both my partners were CEOs that I funded at Kleiner. And Andrew approached me and said, how would you like to start a firm together? And then Ashok joined us within a year after that. So.
And how's that been going?
We're the perfect combination. Andrew's a serial entrepreneur. I'm an operating exec, and Ashok is a deep computer science and life sciences guy.
Right.
So
Good.
So we jokingly say that one is Michelangelo, one is Spock, and I'm Colin Powell.
Colin Powell? Okay. All right. Well, you're raising a new fund, right? This will be your third fund for Great Point.
Yeah, third fund. We said the first fund was about 210 million. The second fund was 300 million. We said, let's make this 350. We don't want We don't want a large fund. It changes you. It changes the way you, and you start delegating a lot. I still believe venture capital is a principled business. You know, there's a small group of people that understands how to pattern match and what to find. When that becomes a big firm, I think things go off the rail. So we targeted 350. We're already over that, and so our hard cap is 400, and we're approaching that. So we'll close the fund probably end of this month or early next month.
And the focus is early stage, and geographically, what is the focus? Are you looking outside of Silicon Valley at all?
Yes. So it's Series A. It's Series A primarily. We'll do some seed and some Series B, but let's say 85% is Series A. It's in enterprise tech. So anything that deals with big data and AI and machine learning and kind of the new advent of, we work along themes that we've developed. And in the enterprise, we think, you know, over the last 30 years, enterprises have developed applications that have a function, and those functions, you know, process, you say an order management processes an order and populates a database. All of a sudden, the world has gone 180. So now you ingest lots of data, you try to figure out what the data is saying to you, and you try to write an application to address the problem or to address what the data is telling you. So it'll be enterprise tech, it'll be health tech, as we've already discussed, it'll be food tech and financial services. And so we don't do any consumer kind of B2C type of business. It'll be primarily US. I'd say a lot of our companies are outside of Silicon Valley. My guess is many as half of them that we've funded in the past, and I would expect more of them in the future will be outside of Silicon Valley. I think we've seen the peak of number of companies, and not just number of companies that get started and become successful that started in Silicon Valley. I think this is now changing. If you go back 3 years and ahead 3 years, you will see this as the knee in the curve, when there'll be more companies started outside of Silicon Valley than inside Silicon Valley.
Okay. And which market do you think will lead that outside of Silicon Valley?
Software. It'll be enterprise software, consumer software. Yeah.
And geographically?
Well, geographically, there's a lot of places. 10 years ago, I don't think I would have funded a company in New York. There's not enough engineers. New York is a really great hub now. New York, Bloomberg did a lot of great work to kind of work with the universities there, and has produced a lot of good software engineers. So New York is a great hub. Pittsburgh is a great hub because of Carnegie Mellon. Austin, Texas has become a great hub. Everybody's kind of run into Austin. Chicago, surprisingly enough, is a great hub. So I think we're seeing it getting democratized now because it's in COVID, and the remote work has helped do that. So I've got one company that doesn't have 2 employees in the same location. I think it has something like 40 or 50 employees. They're all in different locations around the world.
Wow. Okay. I put on my glasses so I can see these questions. And an attendee wants to know, could you tell us more about how you pattern match and what characteristics you look for in a startup? I think you partly answered that, but if you want to elaborate.
So the easiest thing is if the entrepreneur has had a successful track record. So if you can find an entrepreneur that had a successful venture and can explain how he or she did it and wants to do it again, that's a really good indication. Secondly, there has to be we spend a lot of time in the marketplace. There has to be a big market. And in that big market, you have to go underneath and talk to customers and say, not only will they pay for this solution, what will they pay for it, and will it be sustaining in terms of the value it delivers? So we spend more time on the entrepreneur and the market than we do in the technology. If you kind of look at, there are many markets and many entrepreneurs. There's only a dozen technologies, and they apply to everybody. You use robotics to do everything from automated transportation to heart surgery. Okay, so the technologies are pretty basic, and it's how they are applied to different solutions that counts, and how the entrepreneur can tell that story. Can the entrepreneur, tell that story? The founder of Hero Foods, I've watched him tell the story of how he developed his solution, and just people just feel, well, how much money can I give you? It's just it's the way he tells the story and the way he answers questions, and you can just use that to say it's going to translate into success.
Well, this is great insight for all the entrepreneurs out there who are listening to you. So one person who's attending here has some follow-ups for you with Cleveland Clinic. So I'll connect you with this person later on.
Okay.
But that since you're interested in health tech, and of course Cleveland Clinic, you probably have already done some deals with Cleveland Clinic, I would imagine, or it's from spin-outs from Cleveland Clinic.
We've worked with them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. Look, let's give Ray a round of applause. That was terrific. I wish we had a little bit more time. Ray, we'll have you back on the show again, because I want to know more about what you're doing. And I'm sure the audience does too. But thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
And everybody signal your, do your thumbs up. You can do the thumbs up here, right? Okay.
So just a parting message to entrepreneurs and to venture capitalists. I mean, we're in the greatest business in the world. There's no other business where you can get up every morning and do something different and try to change the world. And so I think we're all lucky to be part of this. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a venture capitalist, we're all part of the same equation. It's just an amazing business. And I think it gets better from here.
Okay, the future is better. Actually, that's going to be one of our poll questions later on about the future. So we'll get to that. But thank you, Ray. I really appreciate that. And we're going to move on to our next portion of the program. And just give me a moment to do that. So next, I would like to welcome Darren Young, who is the head of TMT in Asia Pacific for KPMG. Darren, thank you for joining us. I know it's early morning there.
It's not too bad, Rebecca. Hi, thanks for having
me. You're
me.
an early riser.
No, we're all good. How are you been?
Oh, good, very good. Well, we got a lot of people who want to hear what you have to say, and there's, as Ray was just mentioning, there's a tremendous amount of tech innovation going on, and trends and issues, and so particularly with Asia leading so many advances. So maybe we could start there. And Darren, why don't you give a little bit of preview here of, I know we're going to be going into about 5 different questions, but if you want to just give a brief overview of what you see for Asian innovation, kind of in the mobile platform and commerce and these kind of areas, where do you think Asia is leading, and or not?
Well, thanks, Rebecca, and hi, everyone. I mean, that's such a big topic. And I mean, first of all, thanks to Ray and sharing his comments and thoughts. I mean, there are a lot of overlapping items which I felt linked to Asia when he spoke around wearables, the ring, health, ESG, food, social responsibility, and the way we source food in Asia. There are amazing trends and overlaps that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one main thing I probably want to highlight to all around what's happening in Asia is the changing ecosystems around data convergence and how people are using data to monetize business models, be it B2B or B2C, and what I would call hyperlocalization now. So in the world, so I've been in Singapore for 15 years. I was born in Australia, so I worked there for over a decade. And historically, way back in the late 90s, 2000, a lot of influence came through the US, UK, Western organizations. And I think in the last 5-10 years have seen a stronger trend of inventiveness locally, primarily because of environments where nations such as China have allowed more interactions using data. So the WeChat example is the one that people point to, where you're now not just using it as a Uber or get around, or like a Didi where you're getting around with transport, but you're now leveraging WeChat for payments. You're buying and selling things through apps. And I think that creativeness and ability to connect with local to local via applications and data is huge. So I think that's really important. And I think from that point of view, Rebecca, I think there's huge influence where, Indonesia's of this world, Vietnam's of this world, where the cultures, the way they work are maybe a bit more similar to the way Asia does. And so they're looking at different angles. They're looking at what's happening in the West, looking at what's happening in the East, and taking the best of what they're seeing and building new businesses and solutions in markets of hundreds of millions of people to target and transform the way the consumers interact and the enterprise interact. So it's a really exciting time. And I would say in the last few years, it's totally, you can see things really changing, and the big multinationals and corporates are really now trying to get into that space because they're being disrupted by these digital natives.
So speaking of multinationals, from the U.S. multinational side, which companies do you think are doing the best job of investing in the region and expanding the region?
I think if I answer that question by looking at which sectors are being disrupted the most, and therefore what they need to do to respond globally. So you've got obviously banking and financial services as a sector, where payments in Asia or payments around the world has a different model. So I'm using the equivalent of an Uber app now where you can pay. Singtel, the telco in Singapore, and Grab have just won a digital banking license. So if you start to think about that fully digital organization competing with a traditional bank where their data is very siloed and not so agile, and you can't combine these data sets like Ray was talking about to come up with new business models or new things, that's a bit of an inhibitor. So banking and insurance are key areas we're seeing, digital banks, digital insurers. And then we're seeing this convergence in the home. So the convergence in the home links to, again, more data. So if you think about everyone was complaining, telcos were complaining, well, if this phone, I realized how much money was made through apps, I would have perhaps not just sold a phone, I would have built a platform. Well, if you think about IoT devices, and Ray pointed to the Ring, you've got smart locks, you've got home devices, weights, smart speakers. The volumes of data in the home are going to kind of be like a volume of data through your phone. But the business model around that convergence, be it health, insurance, finance, through the home, can transform. So for example, if Rebecca, we said to you, or your elderly parents, will give you a smart lock to the home, a camera, package that for a monthly subscription through your Verizon bill. But on top of that, we'll give you 50% off home insurance because you're sharing data with us. That transforms the way insurance, home, telco interact. And that can go with health, lower health insurance with the Ring, with a blood pressure device, with an Apple Watch, packaging those ways of working in the home. And so there's a race to figure out that. And so when you look at that environment, Rebecca, to answer your question around how do I sell more traditionally, it's not just a product, it's a service, and it's broadly a business. And so it's quite fascinating. All these startups across the region are doing different things in different markets. I'm currently working with clients in Southeast Asia, telcos who are now setting up insurance companies, or insurance companies who are now moving into finance and health. So this crossover of ecosystem is really the point there.
Yeah, that happened in China too. And so it's interesting to see it happening in Southeast Asia and the markets. It makes sense. The markets are fairly similar, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I think if you've got a 1 billion population as a captive homes and markets and consumers, and the regulatory environment to do things differently with technology and data, and there's a lot of legacy there. That fast prototyping model is opening up a lot of entrepreneurs to do things.
Mhm.
I think when I look at, say, being from Australia and you look at, say, US and working with the US organizations in the past and in the UK, a lot of the banking and telco and insurance are very, very highly regulated. Versus, I think, more emerging markets where there's unbanked population who don't have bank accounts. They're not really into insurance. Everyone's trying to sell that. The way they use technology is very different. The farming communities of China in the past and now becoming more, tier 4 cities are becoming more developed. So that sort of mix of that environment can be applied to any Southeast Asian market. And that change from a consumer point of view, consumer products and B2B, is really just merging the way that you interact. Because all of us work for multinationals, let's say, or companies, but in the home, we're just an individual in the home. But all of us, no one looks at it from that point of view. And so I think that's where the opportunity lies. And that's where I think countries like China have really broken many, many different boundaries. I mean, and
Yeah.
financial services, as you can see now,
Sure.
they're, yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm seeing a lot of that, Rebecca, and I think it's going to continue to inspire people to try new different things.
So this week is the Consumer Electronics Show, and that does have a lot of focus on the home. And so anything that you're seeing that's going to revolutionize the way we are living at home?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, if you look at the last decade or so, everyone's been trying to get in through the smart speakers. Everyone's thinking, what is the point to get into the home? And the big players are obviously using that as an entry point. I think the other thing is, commenting is, I think with technology and new consumer products, there's always going to be a lot of new things, very cutting edge things. And I think that the litmus test that we try to now impose on is, how different does that actual product make to the person's life? What value does that bring?
Mhm.
And how intrusive is it to the way that they work today? So for example, replacing a lock with a digital lock, it's okay. You just replace your key with your fingerprint and you're used to that. But changing a behavior very dramatically to do something different, for example, wearing a necklace if I'm a man who I never had to wear one around my neck, or just wear something that is maybe perhaps not so natural to what I'm used to, that adoption of that technology into that world is different. So I was talking to my wife around, she takes her blood pressure with a device and she started downloading apps, and she's not a tech savvy person by any means. But I said to her, well, how would you integrate that into the home? And she said to me something as simple, well, if Amazon or someone was to come up with a really nice vase that I could open up and put my device in there, because I'm sitting here every morning at my dining table, I would check my blood pressure that way. And they would send me a reminder to do that. Or if I just put my finger and the prick, I could do my blood test. But the thing is, that is a integrated way of interacting with a product to provide something that is of value that would overall help you, or the consumer, engage with technology. So, if you come up with all these really whiz-bang technology ideas, that the main thing is that whilst it makes a lot of sense, and I think, technically it makes a lot of sense, the value technically makes a lot of sense, if it doesn't integrate into the way we all behave day to day, the behavioral patterns, or an adjacent one, which is slightly different, it's hard to bring in. So I think from a technology point of view, there's so many different things. I mean, just the ring that Ray pointed out, I was looking it up thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, it is amazing, right?
It
What people are doing. And that is a good example. People wear rings. So it's quite easy to put something on and it doesn't feel so, foreign. Whereas the glasses, when you're wearing things, if you're not used to wearing glasses and you're putting something on, it's a little bit weird, right? So
Yeah.
I think they're the type of things, and there's so many ideas and things that are coming out, Rebecca, that, I guess we can never keep up with them.
Right. So, what, among your clients there at KPMG, are they hyper concerned about the privacy issues, considering all these new gadgets and all this data analytics? It's this privacy issue, front
Yeah, I
burner
mean,
issue.
I think it's going to be a bigger topic this year. I mean, you've probably just seen the WhatsApp note that's come out with their sharing of data with Facebook overnight or the last few days, and people moving off to maybe Signals or Telegram and the different apps. The short answer is yes. I think traditionally people are, I think, not so comfortable with sharing data. I think people are starting to be because of just history. We don't know we're doing it, and we are, like Google, Facebook, etc. I think now with this convergence of data, people are going to be forced to come up with new business models. And in that, there is regulation. Banks, telcos are regulated, highly regulated. But there's also this pressure to come up with new ways of doing things. And you know what, if you're a developer, an offshore, or an idea, you're not taught around that necessary ethics or in data, or you're not taught about security around data, perhaps. You're just there to come up with some really cool new app or feature. And so if you've never been taught around that or how to do that, those boundaries of what's right and wrong, maybe not even in your field of view. You're there just to write something cool. But the thing is, there are risks associated with that. And when you start to combine consumer data or private data with non-private data, those two data sets become private, if you think about that. But if those algorithms and thinking haven't really thought through that, the governance process. So I do think there is going to be an increased emphasis on privacy, particularly coming up this year and in the coming years. We're already seeing it in terms of, you know, people's Twitter accounts being blocked or things like that. I mean, how, you know, people are taking more responsibility now for media and what people share. And so I think the point being is that this is, you know, there are a lot of different angles now that this is going to start to put a lot of pressure, and the risks associated with that are actually quite big if you don't sort of start to put the guardrails around. But you don't want to do it too much to stop innovation, in my point of view. So I think you need to be able to have a balanced approach to that, Rebecca.
So big tech has become kind of a no-no in the US market and also China today. What about in Southeast Asia? Is big tech a bad word?
I think there is definitely a few camps. Absolutely, people are now getting more cautious around big tech, the power that they have. Governments, given the context of COVID and their budgets, are struggling with revenues. And, you know, big tech are now shipping in things around the world and not having to pay taxes. I mean, there's this big conversation around just digital tax. If I'm selling us, you know, a Netflix account in the market offshore, and it, you know, I'm not being taxed, there's no GST on it. Whereas if it was sold locally, I'd get GST revenue. So there's a movement of goods and services that are now becoming more digital and moving offshore. So there's a few angles to that, Rebecca. One is absolutely from a pure government revenue protection point of view, big tech is basically impacting their budgets with less revenues. You see big tech being obviously becoming a bit of a monopolistic behemoth, like we're talking about splitting up things and, you know, competition and power and all that stuff. When you then combine that with the power of media and the voice of media and technology and goods, I mean, you're looking at really a convergence of the biggest things that traditionally you're trying to separate: banking, insurance, papers and media, advertising. I mean, all these things where everyone have said in the silo themselves have very, very powerful areas. And so therefore they need to be regulated and competition. But now you've got big tech, which is cutting across all of those. Now, can you just, you know, you start to see the impact of that. And so the variance of that is there's the local versions as well. And so I think it is fascinating to see how that's playing out. It's absolutely a big topic, but I think also if you look at emerging Asia, and if I take a leaf out of the fact that, you know, none of them are so number one or developed in the world, they're hungry. They want to do different things. So some of the Southeast Asian markets are in the mindset of, you know what, this is our chance to get a leg up against the nation next to us. We can maybe leapfrog a nation based on technology skills, export skills. If you think about what outsourcing in India was 2 decades ago and what that did to transform India, outsourcing and data is a very different skill set. You might combine them as technology, but the skills are very different. You can't transfer that to a data science. So if I'm a nation saying, if I became a data science nation, could I export data science skills around the world? So from that context, that could transform business. So some nations, I would argue, are looking at it from a different angle.
Okay.
Like countries like Vietnam was seeing, really, really hungry, a real hungry nature to bring that in. Whereas you look at Singapore, there's more to lose perhaps in Singapore, where we're already quite established as a nation here.
So
So
is
you see,
Singapore a data science nation already?
we are absolutely pushing that. The government has a huge imperative to drive that. They're driving headquarters of multinationals here. They're investing in that, bringing data scientists here, encouraging training of skills programs, people who have got their COVID's jobs and offering them to retrain into data science or technology. Absolutely, they're doing that. But I was referring also to the hunger of the nation itself as well, because a young population of average age of 30 odd in Vietnam, who maybe don't have enough to the average person in Singapore, are they going to go and learn to code and do stuff themselves and see the opportunity? They've got nothing to lose, actually. Whereas I've got, people in Singapore may have a nice, well-paid job. They've got their car, their house. Are they going to give that up and start coding and run a business? Probably not.
Sure.
And so I think there's this divergence of hunger that links back to your question, which was around that, that topic. So I think there's a lot of different ways of looking at that answer there, Rebecca.
Okay, well, good. I really appreciate all your insights. I wish we had more time, but we do want to give you our super thanks, Darren Young from KPMG Asia Pacific in Singapore. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of follow-ups that I can refer to you from our program. So thank you, Darren.
Well, thanks, Rebecca, and thanks everyone, and appreciate your time. And Silicon,
well, good. Good. See, Ray is applauding you, and I'm applauding you. Okay, excellent. Now, moving along to our next panel, which is going to be a tech chat. It's going to be interesting. We have Jeffrey Lee, who is a venture capitalist here in Silicon Valley, Northern Light Venture Capital. And I've known Jeffrey for quite some time. So thank you, Jeffrey, for being here. And he's going to be on with a company, a startup that he's just funded. And we get to announce the news here today. But Ji-Hung Lee, founder and CEO of Picky. We get to find out what Picky is all about. But Picky has just raised $1.3 million from Northern Light Venture Capital. And Jeffrey's going to tell us why he made that deal.
Great. Hey,
hi, Jeffrey.
Hey, Rebecca. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, for inviting Ji-Hung. We're super excited to be here and to connect with the global audience, literally the global audience and fan base of Silicon Dragon.
Yeah,
which
we do
have to count me as a fan as well. Yeah.
We do. Ji-Hung is here from Korea. Yeah, so thank you. Go ahead, Jeffrey. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Yeah, just want to say welcome and thanks. Super excited. If I might start just really briefly, for those of your audience that don't know about us, we are early stage focused venture firm. It's been 15 years, 6 funds with over 200 companies. We focus on China. We're traditionally a China concept fund with roots in Silicon Valley, thanks to great partners like Greylock and NEA who helped us get started and still work with us today. We really love consumer, the new consumer, the urban consumer, enterprise, technological upgrade. And over the last 5-6 years, we've just been blown away by healthcare, notwithstanding what we're all going through every day for the last 12 months.
Right.
Just really quickly, we see a great opportunity emerging about from learning from investing in China and Silicon Valley about a hyper-connected global world where not only big ideas, but big execution can happen anywhere. And at this point right now, we're choosing Korea.
Really? So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because you have this whole K-pop culture out of Korea. And I'm sure Ji-Hung can tell us all about that, and also tell us about what Picky does. So hi, Ji-Hung.
Hello,
I,
my
I
name
love
is
I love
Juan.
your backdrop there. It looks very
Yeah,
yeah, lively.
this is the downtown Seoul, which is kind of quiet these days, but yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well,
So yeah,
I was there about a year and a half ago before I was grounded like everybody else.
nice, nice. So yeah, I'm Ji Hong. I'm CEO, founder of Picky. So today, I'm here to share you guys a little bit of story of a small startup that has started like ambitious project to innovate global beauty consumer space right before the pandemic. And thank you, Rebecca, for like announcing it like on behalf of me. And then we just successfully closed, yeah, modest pre-seed funding like 8 months after launch with tremendous help from Jeffrey and Northern Lights Venture Capital.
Right.
Nice to see you, everyone.
So have you worked with Jeffrey before?
Yeah, in fact, actually, we met about 2 years ago, a little over, yeah, 2 years ago. And Jeffrey was an investor of my mentor and previous boss in my Supercell. And he was investor for his startup as well. So it's a very special relationship.
Okay. So Jeffrey, why don't you tell us why you made this investment?
To me, Jihong and the team epitomize being global, through the bone. Jihong is part of a new, exciting generation of entrepreneurs, so globally connected, exposed to so many different experiences. I'll save the thunder, but just him working at Supercell, watching that tremendous growth and Jihong's amazing role in helping to expand Supercell's business in Asia. For those of you who don't know, it's one of the world's largest mobile game companies. It's currently part of the Tencent family, which shows you how interconnected the world is. Prior to that, I could tell Jihong's chops were cut at Google HQ in Mountain View, working in mobile. And he even worked at NHN, Naver, which is Korea's largest internet company. And having been born and raised and living his whole adult life, except for the Google experience in Korea. And I know this sounds really pithy, but even his English and his just global connectedness just blows me away and makes me really excited about just the type of people you can meet all over the world who have such potential.
Absolutely. Jihong, did you have your choice of which VC to go with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Northern Light was, my top choice from the beginning till the end.
And why is that?
Well, I think like it is, very like especially like special relationship, and then also I think we share the big belief that I think the world is kind of changing. That this trend, I think when I grew up in Korea in the like 90s or like 80s, actually, everything was from the west to the east, actually.
Yeah.
So all the companies was born in the west, and then we consumed everything from the west. And now I think like our generation or the future, there's gonna be a lot of stuff actually like going vice versa. And we believe that the project we're working on, the beauty industry, is one of them. And there are like great like trends just coming out of Asia, and also like Korea is the beauty capital of the world. And that's the thesis I think we both really believe deeply in. So yeah.
Well, what does your startup do exactly?
Yes, so thank you for asking that. And so Picky is we're a mobile first community that enables you to discover the best beauty brands and products that are right for you.
Okay.
So if you're struggling to choose your new sunscreen today, like you can actually download Picky right now, and I'm sure you're going to be benefiting from it. And we're currently heavily focused on skincare out of all the $250 beauty industry.
So, so as a male founder in the skincare business, is that a little weird or not?
So the thing is, I think so. This is maybe a little bit like a cultural anecdote, but there's a tremendous like pressure for Korean men to maintain your skin like properly.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you the anecdote that my son, he's 6, and then I think there was no single day he hadn't put a sunscreen on from like as soon as he got out of the hospital, actually. And then even for me, yeah, I've been like doing this cleansing, moisturizing, all this kind of stuff. yeah, and it's pretty regular actually.
Okay, your skin looks good.
Thank you. That's I had to really like yeah, make sure that yeah.
Okay, so Jeffrey, this kind of investment for Northern Light Venture Capital, how does it fit into your whole portfolio?
When we talk about China concept and we talk about the trends of Silicon Valley and China, not just as an investment opportunity, but a creator of new modalities, of new ways of living, we find that that is spreading and propagating, and you're seeing evolution of those concepts in other markets like Korea. And so that's what makes Korea really exciting for us. If we look at Picky, we look at companies in China. I think many of the audience of the followers of Silicon Dragon will know, you've got companies like Xiaohongshu, you've got Pinduoduo, obviously you've got Alibaba. You talk about places that have innovated in social commerce. And so you take those ideas in the long tail, and then you apply that to something as powerful as K-beauty, which is what Picky's working on. To us, that's really compelling. It's really global. It's a huge market, we think. It's a market that already is trying to happen on its own, but with a lot of friction. And we're really excited that Picky could be that enabler that just reduces that friction and allows the market to just explode.
Okay. So Jihong, how did you come up with this idea?
So I think there are like few aspects to this, but I want to focus on more on like, more like theoretical perspective that it is like a classic like problem solution scenario. And we're just really helping consumers to, break through the clutter surrounding the beauty products and find out what's best products for them. And, there are a lot of other like industry has a similar product, like, for example, like Yelp and TripAdvisor are products that we really relate ourselves to. And probably the beauty wasn't like that big of a problem for a lot of consumer, but recently, consumers have been facing a lot of choices thanks to the, all this D2C like innovation, and also the new generation really take care of this beauty brands very seriously. It's the expression of themselves.
Right.
So we've seen like much bigger demand actually, and which happened in Korea already previously.
So does your product have global potential? I imagine it does. And what are the competitors you would be facing on a global level?
There aren't like a strong player like globally right now. Really, that's just focusing on the like content and information that we do. Like there are a lot of e-commerce company who has like a content.
Yeah.
So we're like entirely like focused on like authentic content and getting user reviews and discussions around the brand and products.
Right.
However, we feel there's gonna be like competitors emerging in the US as well. There has been some like news of funding that we are aware of, and yeah, that's all like we're aware of right now.
Okay. And how did you come up with the name Picky?
Oh, yeah, that's like a great story. It was actually created by our like previous marketing intern that she's no longer with the company, but we just like she had like 3 names, and then I just heard Picky was the first one, and they're like, oh, this is it. Like we gotta do this actually. So
Okay. Okay. So I think we added some participants who raised their hands here. If you have a question, you can enter it into the Q&A box here, and then we'll get to it. Okay. So Jeffrey, Jihong, do you have a question for Jeffrey, or Jeffrey, do you have a question for Jihong?
I can start. So Jiyoung, how do you feel about the? I know that we all are struggling and the lights at the end of the tunnel with COVID-19, but what opportunity do you see happening that's hopefully a tailwind or a chance for Picky because of what we're going through the last year?
yeah, so I want to tell you like one anecdote about like directly from our users. So globally right now, a lot of people who have been like beauty shopper, they used to go to the shop and get advices from the actual like people at the shop to learn about like skincare or beauty, and then help them with like choices actually. But that's impossible right now. Everything is e-commerce. So we were hearing a lot of feedback that is so helpful that, you know, you're able to talk to our like fellow users and then also directly from the content that we create like on our own, and you know, help them make decisions about like what products to buy and choose. So that has been like kind of like we feel as a great tailwind. And I think this trend will stay actually, like, because we don't see like people going back to the shop and then, you know, trying out all these products and stuff. So
Right.
I think the demand has been like, yeah, greater actually.
Okay. So Lawrence, I see Lawrence wants to ask a question. So Lawrence, you want to unmute yourself and ask a question? Okay. All right. Well, or you can enter your question into the box. All right. Well, we'll come back. We'll come back to Lawrence later on. Just hold that thought, Lawrence, and let's give Jeffrey and Jihong a round of applause because we have to move on to the next one. This is a really fast-moving program. We've got our next panelist in the wings, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
And there I see David Kaufman. He's all ready to get all of his panelists all lined up here.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Good to see you.
Yeah, hi David, how are you? Hi
great.
Richard, hi Yvonne. Let's see who else we've got here. Ken, Anthony. I think it's a full house, right, David?
Yeah, I can't wait to catch up with you, Rebecca, on your trip to West Virginia.
Oh, oh, really?
I grew up very close, right down the road from Pittsburgh, from Ray, in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And I think my mother was born in McKeesport, or I think Ray was born, and my father was born in Morgantown. So
oh yeah, well
lots of
Morgantown.
connections to that part of the country.
West Virginia University. So actually, you know, our next program is going to have two more people. Yeah, Ray's
Hey, Ray.
McKeesport.
Yes, McKeesport. And then my grandmother and grandfather lived in White Oak for a number of years. So we used to go there and read the McKeesport, I think, Daily News, I think. So we spent a lot of time visiting them.
Small world.
Yeah, so that's part of my interest in this neck of the woods as well, as we would say, is that I'm originally from Southern Ohio, which is on the border there of West Virginia and so forth. Yeah.
Well, we've all come a long ways from there. So
we have, and let me introduce David. David, who I met in Silicon Valley, is a director of global strategies at Dixon Peabody, the law firm. And David and I have worked together on a number of programs. So I am turning over the moderating of this session to David and allowing him to go ahead, and I'm going to take myself off for a little bit and
take a rest. Take a rest, Rebecca.
I'm going to give my eyes a rest.
Yeah, exactly. You've been working pretty hard. So it's one. We have a great group here, and so I'm going to go right into the question and answer. I think you've seen what these guys do, and they can maybe talk about their introductions, self-introductions, while they answer some of the questions. But one of the things I want to highlight is that all these companies are global. They're doing business globally, and they come from different geographies. But some geographies, I think, spend more time and effort to help develop their businesses. I think we have two folks from Singapore, and I'd love to hear from them. What's happening with how has Singapore benefited them? I think one of them actually went back to Singapore and reset up their business, and one of them is coming from has had some kind of benefit from Singapore. But I'd love to hear more about the Singaporean market and how they've helped you kind of go out and go out to the rest of the world. So I don't know who wants to start, but Yuen maybe from the great bicycle helmet company Lumos.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Ewan. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Lumos. Just to give you a quick idea, this is our product. It's a smart bicycle helmet that you can turn on and find your lights with you all the time. So red lights.
I think I've sold 4 or 5 of them for you already.
Awesome.
I've been
thank you so much.
Sending the link out to all my friends who are cyclists. So
if you're a cyclist, go check it out. If you know someone who's cycling, which these days is everybody. So I definitely have a product for you. I started the company when I was living in the States. That's where I was feeling the problem the most. I was living in Boston, which was rated at that year worst drivers in America that year. And I really just felt frightened for my life. And that's where the idea came from. Since then, I've been moving around. I was living in Hong Kong for a while and more recently moved back to Singapore because of the pandemic. But the Singapore is Singapore legally Singapore headquarter based. And the question was about, government support. We've never really talked to the government directly, but one of the schemes that they have, that I like to call it schemes, is not really a subsidy for entrepreneurs, but subsidies for investors. And that was actually, so I benefited from that indirectly, because by subsidizing the investors, they sort of try and give them more gunpowder to put more money into promising startups. And so I benefited from that scheme, but indirectly. So I never talked to the government myself. The investor did all the back and forth with the government. That's my experience.
And Anthony, I think you have a kind of a different approach on it.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, David. So hi, everyone. My name is Anthony. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Igloo Company. Our vision at Igloo Company is to create a world without keys. And as part of that, what we do is we design a range of smart door locks, padlocks, key boxes that allow you to manage and control access to your homes and to your businesses. And we have two lines of business. One is Igloo Home, which is more for the consumer market, and Igloo Works, where we design a large platform for access control for large clients like telcos, data centers, or even like facilities managers around the world. So the company is kind of very interesting. We're structured where we have a Singapore headquartered, very similar to how Ewan did it. And we have regional offices around the world. Today, we have about 13 regional offices, one of them being in the US, others being in China, Korea, or even in Southeast Asia as well, where we do some of our operations. So as David mentioned earlier, we actually started out in the US about 5 years ago, where we were very targeting the Airbnb vacation rental market, helping Airbnb hosts to manage their check-ins in a much easier fashion with an Igloo Home smart door lock. And as the company progressed, we started getting a lot of support from the Singapore government. And in 2018, we actually relocated and transformed the entire company to be a Singapore headquartered company. At that point in time, Enterprise Singapore, there's this agency in the government that started becoming a lot more vocal around entrepreneurship as well as supporting the SMEs over in Singapore, where they started to provide a lot of grants on two parts. I think two parts I wanted to point about that kind of we benefited from. Number one is market access. The second one is talent access. So with market access, the government of Singapore actually supported many of our conferences when we visited overseas for trade shows to showcase our products, especially one like CES. So over the past 2 years, we actually leveraged on some of this support from the Singapore government for our booths as well as our exposure for an international market, which was very helpful for us. The second one was access to talent. When we were setting up our factories over in China, as well as hiring some of our engineers over in China, we also managed to leverage some of the connections from the Singapore government to defray some of our costs when we set up our offices as well as our factories over in China. So this were kind of the two angles that we benefited from. Yeah.
Great. And Ken, you're in Hong Kong, and so you're in the the park there. How have you benefited from being in Hong Kong and the kind of innovation economy there?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Ken. I'm VP of Business Development of Altai Technologies. So our company started 15 years ago, and we have a concept or idea to use Wi-Fi technologies to connect the connected. And we came up with this super Wi-Fi technologies that can cover up to 1.7 kilometers using a single access point. So I would say we are one of the first few startups in our Hong Kong Science Park. And Hong Kong is great areas geographically and strategically for IT industry. First, geographically, we have China behind us as a big market, and we are also facing the international markets, including Southeast Asia and North Americas. And also, we have large pool of talents from China, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asia as well for our R&D teams. And strategically, Hong Kong is one of the major international cities. It's a good place to showcase our technology to the world. And as everyone knows, Hong Kong has a reputation of high standards and requirements, and many people like to complain in Hong Kong. And in the last few years, China and Hong Kong governments have a lot of strategic plans to cultivate and grow the IT industries. So many programs and incentives have been offered into IT industries through different channels. So for our company, we're based in Hong Kong Science Park. And as one of the two camps for IT industry startups, so we got a lot of support and resources from our partners, Hong Kong Science Park, from the R&Ds and to marketing expansion as well. So we get quite a lot of exposures, and in which they also invited us to this talk today. So thank you for Science Park, and also thank you for Rebecca and David as well.
Great. And Richard, we talked a little bit earlier, and on our call, you were talking about how your company is constantly innovating. That really is trying to develop new technologies. But that must be difficult, you know, given that we're in this COVID period. Things are strained. But you know, how is your company adjusting to this period and continuing to innovate and develop new technologies to go forward in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Richard Carrier. I'm the head of worldwide marketing at Cyberlink. I'm also responsible for the Americas business. Pre-COVID, I used to spend a fair amount of time at our headquarters based in Taipei, which in itself will probably answer half of your question. All our R&D team, we have hundreds of engineers at the headquarters in Taipei. And as most of you probably know, Taiwan has done an amazing job at dealing with COVID-19. So all I can say is that our innovation capabilities have not been affected. If anything, our latest areas of innovation, both in our traditional businesses, and if you've used the PC in your life, you've used some of our digital media software, Power DVD, Power Director for video editing, Photo Director for photo. Now these are all available on phone. So we continue to innovate there, and demand has increased as people around the world have been doing things digitally and spend a whole lot more time sharing content than last year. But our most recent area of innovation, which is around facial recognition, is also something that's booming. So the interaction of very strong engineering capabilities and our team that has developed one of the world's best facial recognition engine called FaceMe, and the need all around the world for these contactless ways to identify people, combine that to all the solutions we have specific to COVID to identify people, even if they're wearing masks, make sure people wear their mask correctly over their nose, mouth, and measure temperature. So we have a very, I wouldn't call it a perfect storm because that sounds negative, but we're in a very interesting place right now where our engineering capabilities, our innovation capabilities are not at all affected, and market demand around the world has been increasing. So all in all, it's quite good for our business, for Cyberlink.
Great. I think a couple of you said that you're fundraising currently. What does that look like? How are you able to do that given, of course, this period where you're not seeing people, kind of playing off what Ray was talking about? But how's that going along, and what are you doing? And are you looking for us to write you some checks? I see you, and you're laughing.
I'm not sure if I'm representative of the group. My personal hierarchy of where I want the dollars from the company to come from is customers always first, and then investors, and the last of all will be government. And thankfully from the pandemic, we've benefited a lot from just this huge boom in bicycles. So I'm in a very fortunate place where we're actually, it's the best year ever for us. So I don't have to be fundraising, which I'm very happy about. That being said, we never say no to a conversation and build a relationship.
What about someone else? Anyone else fundraising at the moment?
So, oh, sorry. You go ahead, Anthony.
Okay. Sure. I'll keep it short. So on our side, yes, I think like you wouldn't say we never say no to a check, you know. So it's always constantly looking for potential partners to join us, and we're looking more for strategic opportunities and partners. Like I think David alluded to, I think during the whole pandemic, a lot of deals have been done online virtually. So as with new fundraise with new potential partners, it's always difficult because you kind of want to put a face to it. And when you're doing due diligence, you've got to meet the factories, to visit, look at the IP that we've designed, the technology to showcase. So what we have actually been working for us is working with existing, funds that we have already been in touch with for the past 2 years that have been following the growth of Eagle Company. At the same time, we have also been having conversations with many of our strategic enterprise clients who have been, deploying the tons of thousands of locks that we have been selling. And so they also see the strategic alignment between what we are providing for them and what, this locks and the access platform that we have designed can help to be a transformative, power for that particular industry that they are in. So these are the two angles that we have been really approaching to our fundraising strategy for the past 6 months and, probably for the foreseeable 6 to 12 months.
How are people getting comfortable working with you if you can't, they can't see you, they can't talk, they can't look at what your team, things like that in real time, as they say. How are you overcoming that hurdle?
Yeah, so I think with the two approach that we've been taking, the first one is for funds that we have already been engaging with, who already know us for the past 2 years, because we raised probably 2 rounds in the past 2 years, and so there are a lot of funds that we have already been keeping close contact with that have met us, they've met some of our team, and I think we realized that many of the funds, they're also kind of changing to the way the world works, where their deals being closed online virtually nowadays already. In fact, over the past 3 months, a couple of funds that we've spoken to, they've been telling us, Anthony, we've been closing funds virtually. It takes 3 months to do the due diligence. We're going to do a lot of Zoom calls. We might have a local partner on the ground that might visit you, but they're getting more comfortable with doing that. But of course, that being said, I think where we have been finding other successes is also speaking with our enterprise clients who already are deploying our products and they're using it already for their own, operational efficiencies, for them to help to overcome, contactless kind of requirements or, provide contact tracing. So they're already seeing the value for the product that we have been providing for them. And many of these large-scale enterprises are also looking to digitize and innovate during this period of the pandemic. And some of them are starting to look at how they can, maybe invest in some new startups or new technology that they themselves are not working on, but could be potentially core to their growth in the future. So these are the two ways that we have been really approaching this problem.
Interesting. Ken, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So same as Ewan and Anthony, we are always looking for money. But this year we have not been actively looking for funding because the COVID-19 has brought up some challenges, but yet it also brought us some great opportunities. Because around the world, many people see the importance of connectivities, and we as one of the components in connecting the unconnected, we have been participating in a lot of remote wireless broadband type of projects. So this year has been quite, I would say, is quite good for our business. Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was telling Ken that I'm looking forward to working with him because I put a bike trainer in my garage, and it's too far away from my condominium townhouse to get my Wi-Fi signal. So I need to work on that. So Ken, we're gonna have to get in touch to figure out how I can boost that signal.
For sure, let me know.
Yeah. Richard, you're talking about the fact that you view your company as very global. But what's your approach to the U.S.? How do you market into the United States? And what's your strategy? Are you looking to expand more in the United States? Is the United States a key market for you? And tell us a little bit about the Cyberlink's U.S. strategy.
Sure. So from day one, Cyberlink had to go global. Thanks to the infrastructure and the business environment in Taiwan, where you have lots of the top hardware manufacturers and we're a software company, it was pretty easy for us, or it was natural to engage with local partners and then go to the US as well as other leading countries, but like Japan, leading countries in Europe, elsewhere. But to focus in the US, our approach is to have, from day one, we had a local sales team. We built a local marketing team, a customer support, and then our software is distributed at the beginning through local OEM manufacturers. So the big PC manufacturers in the US. building the local marketing to our presence there, we went into the different channels. So we talk about consumer software, the Best Buys of the world, but also Amazon and others. And as we kept building our brand awareness through these channels, we've built in the last 10 years, I would say, a very strong direct channel on our website to sell our software, on the App Store, the Play Store to distribute our apps. And this is how we've built most of our revenue base, and this is how it's growing today. So we have this local sales force, marketing force, support for our clients, all supported by our infrastructure at the headquarters. So that's at a high level. More recently, I was talking about the facial recognition solutions, FaceMe, which is a B2B play, very different than the B2C we've been doing for 20 plus years. And this is where we're in the process of building a business development team locally in the US to work with local OEMs, local IoT developers, because they are important targets for us to implement our technologies, as well as system integrators, channels, and the specific verticals. And we work very closely with them. We are no nonsense, and when it comes to the quality of our, we get a lot of attention, a lot of interest. And also because of our strong product focus, we're pretty active in the thought leadership in the space. So this is our pretty quickly, even though we're not the size necessarily of some other multinational companies, we're getting a very good positioning in our key markets.
What about the rest of you? What's the US market look for you? I know you and America is a big market for your product. How are you marketing in the US?
Yeah, America is our biggest, most important market. I would say there's two things that we primarily do. My company started out of Kickstarter. Our first campaign was like 2015, and we did another one last year that was really successful as well. It raised over about $3 million, and so we've kind of ended up making Kickstarter part of our DNA. And it's just wonderful for a consumer product because it's the best way to meet your first early adopters, your first core group of customers. They pay for the privilege to give us feedback, and it's just positive.
So what was the deal? What was the deal with Kickstarter? So did you know, for how much money you got, and you got a helmet? How did you structure your first deal?
So for those who may not be familiar with Kickstarter, it's just a way to pre-order product. There's nothing to do with equity. It's not an investment in the company. You're just placing money for the promise of a product. It's actually very risky for a customer, and tens of thousands of people, 30,000 people trusted us with their money to build the product for them. We're not that new anymore, so we sort of roughly know what we're doing these days, although sometimes I question that. So the product's on its way. In fact, the one I showed you just now, this is the product that we sold on Kickstarter, and is being produced in China right now to be fulfilled to backers. So that's our primary marketing sort of technique, if you could call it that, just engaging our customers directly and building a relationship and building a conversation with them. Most of our sales, like you said, comes from word of mouth, people just saying, this is a great product and my friends should have it because it makes them safe. But the second thing I wanted to mention is more sort of long-term. Like one of the things that we see in our space and we believe really strongly is that over the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see the biggest change in mobility since like the invention of the car. You know, a lot of focus has been on electric cars, and of course that's going to be really important. But I think what the pandemic has shown us with our own eyes is with all the cars out of the road, we start to realize the sheer amount of space we've given and ceded to cars. And it's time to step back and think like, is that really the sort of urban environment that we sort of want? So that's kind of been what's fueling the bike boom as well. A lot of people have taken stock as like, how do I want to live my life? And is a big commute to the city something that's really important to me, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a huge opportunity for like innovation in the mobility space. I'm particularly interested in innovation in micromobility space. Talking about bicycles, electric bikes. That's going to be a huge part of our lives moving forward soon.
Great. Ken, what about you? What's your US strategy?
So for last year onward, we have been quite focused in the US market as well. We're putting in more resources and we're recruiting more distributor partners and dealers as well. Because as I mentioned earlier, the COVID-19 has brought us very good opportunities. In fact, the government of the US are getting more awareness of the importance of connectivities. So in US alone, the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, has announced around $10 billion funding to connect the remote areas. So we are getting more exposure through different platforms and participating in different different events to increase our exposure in the US as well, because our technologies, the long-range Wi-Fi, is well suited in these type of environments or scenarios. So yeah. So
how are you getting around the trade friction between the US and China?
Sorry?
The trade friction between US and China? I know that, as you're likely aware, there's a lot of trade friction there in terms of products being made in China. How are you getting around that?
Our products are strategically manufactured in Taiwan. We are part of the telecommunication equipment. But we are less sensitive than these 5G technologies, although our technologies, I would say, is quite good and advanced to cover large areas. So, but then we also got some impact between this frictions between China and US. So the whole global supply chain has been impacted. So many of the component IC or the shifting of the production capacities have been shifted from China's and to Taiwan or maybe some other areas. So the production capacities has limited us and some of our product deliveries and fulfillment as well. But obviously we have been trying to see how to mitigate these type of production deliveries risk as well.
Great.
So Ken, Lawrence Heng had a question for you about whether the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks is helping you with your VC connections and investment.
Yes. So Hong Kong Science Park had a lot of functions to help the startups or even some of the mature companies. So yes, they have been connecting us to the markets, including VC, also the commercials, all these big companies as well, to adopt our technologies in Hong Kong and elsewhere as well.
Super. So I think we're running out of time, but one last question I'm going to give the group. So this CES is now virtual. I think, Richard, you said you've been to one before. I'm not going to pick on you because you and I have similar hair color, but you know, what are you? How you start off first? How's the CES going to be different, and how are you going to adjust to it being virtual?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very different this year. Now we're already on day 3, if you count the day with press earlier this week. So honestly, I cannot say that we get all the excitement. It's hard to feel the energy of a physical CES. So I think it's good in a sense that we have a very targeted solution we want to present. It's our facial solution, FaceMe. We can query the participants' database. We've been quite successful talking to press. So in that sense, every conversation is meaningful. But at the same time, there's nothing. I've been probably 15, 20 times at CES, like certainly you, David, and others, and Rebecca. You cannot beat the energy of being there in a physical show. And that's a bit unfortunate this year. I'm looking for it to be back next year.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, Richard. Yeah, completely agree, Richard. I think nothing beats being physically there. We have actually been there for the past, I think, 4 years. And now, you know, our teams locally based in the US as well as over in Singapore, we're just taking turns to cover the different time zones, being online, answering questions. But like Richard said, you know, we're just trying to be more focused on what we're offering this year, looking at our large scale kind of NB-IoT cellular connected smart locks. But yeah, I mean, we definitely hope to be physically in Vegas again, you know, next year, or some sort of like a mix between the physical and the online kind of presence. That'll be excellent.
Well, good. I think we need to wrap it up there, and I would like to introduce our next guest, who I see here already, Maelle Gavet. Hi, Maelle. And thank you, panelists. Thank you, David, for moderating that wonderful panel of the Asian innovators, who we had from Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and we heard from Korea earlier. So I think that's a good segue to introduce Maelle here. Hello, Maelle. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. We're happy to have you here today, and particularly congratulations to you on your new position there as CEO of Techstars.
Yeah, the timing worked out really, really well. You and I, we discussed this fire chat quite some time ago, and then when we talked last week, I was like, oh, by the way, there's going to be some news by the time we'll be talking again. So yeah, I became the CEO of Techstars on Monday, 3 days ago. So that's day 3.
Wow, you must be super busy. So we really appreciate you spending some time with us. And yeah, so I'm curious, what do you expect to accomplish at Techstars, and you know, what are your goals? What are your ambitions for Techstars?
Look, I mean, first, I think it starts with continuing the amazing business that they have built, because I think few people actually realize how big Techstars is. This is a company that has invested in more than 2,200 startups around the world. That's a portfolio that currently has a value of more than $185 billion. That's close to 300 employees. And so just making sure that this business continues to be as successful as it is quite high on the list. Beyond that, I think what I liked very much when Techstars approached me and I got deeper into the business model was that I think we have this unique opportunity to combine a very good business model. It's a company that is successful in finding good business to invest in, and positive social impact, pushing diversity, thinking about new ways of making tech more human-centered. And this is back to the book that you and I were supposed to originally talk about when we first discussed this.
We can still talk about it. I have it right here. Trampled by unicorns.
Exactly. And so it actually worked out extremely well, that Techstars is, in terms of missions and values, is very aligned to what I was talking about in the book, around this idea that tech is or can be a force of good. Tech is a way to innovate, to transform the world. But we need to be very conscious of the fact that we need to be more empathetic and more human-centric. And Techstars, to me, was a really good way to combine that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. And so I would like to delve into your book a bit as well. Particularly since we share a book agent.
Yes, she's amazing. I'm going to do a little bit of advertising about her. Her name is Leah, and she's fantastic. So if you are looking for an agent, looking to write a bestseller, I cannot recommend her enough.
Yeah, it's good. Hi, Leah. I hope you're there. And also Paul on the PR front. Yes. Anyhow, I'm curious. We're going to launch a poll a little bit into this segment as well to get audience feedback. But so one of your issues that you write about is the problem with big tech and whether big tech should really be broken up. Should big tech be broken up? What's the problem with big tech? That's just a big picture issue. What's the problem with it?
All right, so look, I mean, basically what you're asking in this overall topic around antitrust, and I think we need to step back a little before being able to answer that question. I think that first, the most important question to me, or the most important question is, are we comfortable? And this is really an open question. Are we comfortable as a society, as individual citizens, to have companies that are more powerful, so private power, that are more powerful than democratically elected government? And I'm asking that question not just as a rhetorical question. It's a real question, because there are actually people that will tell you that they're very comfortable with that, and they do believe that companies are actually more efficient than government, and that the way market operates has proven over and over again to be more result driven and more impactful than government. I personally disagree with that. I do think I'm very aligned with President Roosevelt, who a long time ago, when he was actually pushing antitrust in the US, was very clear, and I talk about that in the book, was very clear that in his opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of scholars at the time and a lot of economists, there should not be private companies more powerful than democratically elected government. Once we clear up that, then there is a question of if you agree that we should have a better balance between the two, then the question becomes, how do we reach that balance? Antitrust is one of the tools in the toolbox. It's not the only one. It's not a universal tool. It's not like we can just, when people talk about breaking up companies, it often sounds like we just have to take big tech and like break them up. And every time my reaction is like, okay, how? It's not, there are some things that are more easy than others, like separating Instagram and WhatsApp from Facebook is infinitely easier than saying we're gonna break Google search. That's technically, and from a business perspective, the book into more detail about when there are situations where antitrust and breaking up company absolutely applies, and then the situation where frankly there are much better things to do than applying antitrust.
Right. So one of the big topics today is, and historically thinking about the steel companies and, the antitrust back historically, and now we're in the tech. Now the same thing is happening in the tech business. So you're seeing these giants emerge, which can be anti-competitive. So interesting topic. So another topic I want to bring up is you have a chapter in here on anti-social networks. And so today social media is certainly in the limelight and spotlight. I'm just curious, what do you think about, just to bring up a very topical issue, what do you think about Twitter and Facebook banning certain people from their platforms? And you know which certain people I'm talking about.
Yeah, very cool question. So I think, again, and it's not that I want to avoid the question, but I think a lot of the issue with these debates is that they are anchored in emotions rather than actual facts and practical business reality. So I think when we have this discussion around should we or should we not have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube banning a certain number of people, I think we have to go back to what is it that we believe private companies should and shouldn't be allowed to do. Particularly in the US, there's this highly debated, most often without any facts, highly debated Section 230. And so Section 230 in the US, and I'm sure this group being very tech focused know what I'm referring to, but in a nutshell, Section 230 basically is what allows and protects any internet company, not just social media platform, against any legal pursuit regarding the content that is being published by their users. What that means is that it does concern not just social media platform, but it also concerns like e-commerce. Anytime a user leaves a review on a product, that is actually covered by Section 230. Amazon is not legally responsible for a false review on their website. And it is actually quite important because if we were to repeal completely Section 230, which is currently part of the conversation, we would have to figure out how we are going to handle everything that is currently pretty much the entire content generated on the internet, not just on Facebook, not just on Twitter. And so again, trying to put all of that into perspective when we talk about what should and shouldn't be published on the internet, we have to remember that we built a system that is very much based on this idea that tech companies cannot be sued for what they do with the content, whether they publish it, which is part of what we're debating now, but also whether they take it down. There is no legal obligation for these companies to keep content or delete content. They basically, really, Section 230 allows them to do whatever they want with the user content. And then we're back to the question that you were asking earlier, which is, do we believe that private companies should have as much power as they currently have?
And you think definitely not.
I am advocating, and that was really the whole thesis of the book. I'm advocating for a balance, for a third way. I think I've been working in tech now for 15 years, and I've been hearing so many times that I can't count anymore, the gospel of self-regulation. And yeah, I don't believe that self-regulation works. It has never worked for any industry before the tech industry, and we're no better or no worse, by the way. Like, the self-regulation is not something that functions. At the same time, I have experienced firsthand what it is to work in countries where the government has a very overbearing top-down approach to regulations. And my experience is that it's not either the kind of society I want to work in. And so then it becomes a question of how can we find the balance between what I would call capitalistic entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial capitalism, depending on how you want to look at it, and the power, again, of democratically elected government that we elected for them to strengthen and support a certain vision of life, a certain vision of society. My view is that in the Western world, at least, we have been pretty good at keeping that balance. We have very innovative companies, and we also have governments that have been pretty powerful in saying, in putting guardrails about the do's and don'ts for this company.
Right.
I want that. I want us to continue to have this balance. That's not an easy balance to find, but we've done a pretty awesome job at that for several decades. I just want that to continue.
Okay. So one of the aspects of your book, and since we do focus a lot here at Silicon Dragon and Silicon Global on venture capital, your view of venture capital is rather negative. So I would like I would like to find out why.
So it is nuanced. I do think that venture capital has actually helped tech be what it is today. And I very purposefully say it in a neutral way because the good, the bad, and the ugly are largely dependent on venture capitalism. And the good is there. Like, there's a lot of companies that would not exist if venture capitalists had not only given money, because I think a lot of people think about VC just in terms of the size of the check they're going to be able to provide, but they do way more than that. They provide a network. They provide signal to the market in terms of what are the good and the bad company. And I talk about that in the book. And so venture capitalism has brought a lot of good. And by the way, there is I don't know if it's a theory, but there's a pretty widespread belief that one of the reasons why Silicon Valley has emerged, it's indeed it's the presence of universities, it's an overall ecosystem, but it is in particular the fact that there are some very strong venture capitalists that, and very specific legislation in the US that has helped VC emerge. And one of the reasons why, for example, in France, my country of origin, it's not, we don't have as many unicorn and as many startups. Like, one of the theory or belief that is being debated is that we do not have such a strong VC tissue. It's not the only reason, but I actually believe that it is one of the explanation, and that we should be in France doing a lot more when it comes to providing an investment infrastructure for tech startups. So having said that, I also do think, and I write in the book about this, I also do think that the bad and the ugly come, not just the good, the bad and the ugly also come from, to some extent, from the way venture capitalism operates. When we look at diversity numbers that are abysmal, like VCs are very largely responsible for that, because there is a very strong focus on the known, on like people that they can understand, on the myth of the young founders are smarter and more successful than old founders. Because when I talk about diversity, I don't talk just about, to me, it's not just gender or racial diversity, it's other thing as well, like age, for example.
Right.
And so I think the VC world has very largely contributed to the lack of diversity, the lack of investment in more companies that are focused on positive social impact, on hyper concentration of capital in a few geographies, in sometimes unsustainable business model that we have talked a lot about in the last 18 to 24 months. It doesn't mean that there's no good. It doesn't mean that it's not solvable, but I do think that yes, the VC world has a huge responsibility into the tech world that we currently live in, and that's not all pretty and all good.
So Techstars is also an investor, an accelerator and an investor. So in your new role, will you be trying to fix some of these problems that you outlined?
Definitely. I think, as I mentioned at the very beginning of our discussion, like one of the main reasons why I was so excited about Techstars is that this is a company that has already a track record when it comes to pushing diversity, and exploring new geography, and really focusing on positive social impact while still having extremely good return on investment. And I think that we can push that further. We can broadcast that model to new area, new industries, new geography. And so yes, that's a key reason why I was so excited to join Techstars.
Okay, well, congratulations again, Maelle, and we look forward to hearing from you a lot more in the future. So round of applause for Maelle. And thank you very much, Maelle. I know you're very busy because you're only day 3 in your new job. So we'll let you go and get back to work. Thank you again.
Thanks again for having me. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Take care. All right, folks, are you ready for our poll? I'm going to launch our poll now. Okay, so here you get to respond, and I will be sharing the results. So we have a few questions that I've come up with. And the first one is, and you can just answer online and we'll tabulate the results. When do you expect to return to your normal workplace? March 2021, June 2021, end of 2021, probably never. So you can weigh in on that. The second question is, will 2021, the new year, and Happy New Year, everyone, be better for you professionally than this past year? Okay. And do you enjoy remote working? Look, these are not earth-shattering questions, but they're fun. What's your view of big tech? Good, bad, indifferent? Okay, and then we have our poll question. Who is the richest tech titan in the US? And the winner of this, well, I think there might be several winners, but I do have some books to give away. Are you eager for our events to go live again? Yes, almost everybody says that because they like to have our networking. I know. And okay, so now let's see. I see here that most people think actually the biggest response comes for end of 2021, people expect to be back to their normal workplace, 36%. Almost everybody universally agrees that this year will be better than last year. It's so about 2/3 enjoy remote working. It wasn't a big change for me because as a journalist and author, I'd been remote working for a long time. And what's your view of big tech? Good. A lot of people like big tech. 50, more than half. About a quarter are indifferent. They don't really care. Who is the richest tech titan? Oh, a lot of people got this one right because it just changed today. Elon Musk has topped Bezos, so very switched on tech audience there. Are you eager for? Yes, we did that already. So thank you. And I appreciate everyone's response. We'll be sharing these out. So I'm going to end the polling now. And next, well, I'll share the results. I'm sharing the results with everyone now. Hope you can see them. Okay. So finally, we are going to be segueing into our Hong Kong portion of the program. And we're going to be introducing Jackie Tsang, who is here from Hong Kong, as you can see by her backdrop. Although I think she's actually in San Francisco, but she's representing Invest Hong Kong. She's in the San Francisco office of the Economic and Trade Office. Thank you, Jacko, for being here. And I know you wanted to make a few remarks about the Hong Kong startup scene, and certainly Silicon Dragon has played a part in this whole startup scene in Hong Kong. So I'd love to hear about any new initiatives that are going on that our audience needs to know about in case they're considering, you know, a move to Hong Kong or setting up something in Hong Kong. So Jacko,
thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca, for hosting today's event and for inviting me to participate.
Sure.
I'm very pleased to see the Hong Kong companies here today, including Altai Technologies, and Afan Meet, whose co-founder and CEO will speak to you soon. Hong Kong is very keen to support innovation and technology development, and that's not just talk. For instance, the Hong Kong government is investing over $13 billion in science and technology infrastructure, research institutions, and funding programs for R&D and innovation and technology. These include a total of $1.28 billion funding to establish 2 R&D clusters, one in healthcare-related technology and the other in AI and robotics, in collaboration with world-renowned research institutions. Another $258 million Innovation and Technology Venture Fund, which co-invest with venture capital funds into startups at a 1-to-2 ratio. The purpose is to encourage more private organizations, VCs, and angel investors to invest in INT in order to create a vibrant startup ecosystem. VCs such as Radiant Tech and Beyond Ventures took part in the program. So far, a total of 19 startups have received investments under the scheme, including Silicon Valley company Genvida, involved in DNA sequencing technology. Apart from funding, key policies are in place to encourage research and development. Since 2018, enterprises can enjoy tax deduction of up to 300% for qualifying R&D activities undertaken in Hong Kong. This encourages more companies to conduct R&D locally. Moreover, new policies continue to come on board. For example, the government announced recently that it will launch a global STEM professorship scheme with an estimated funding of $258 million to strengthen our support for the universities to attract world-renowned INT scholars, as well as their teams to work in Hong Kong. This is on top of the existing Quality Migrant Admission Scheme, which is a special program for talents to come to live in Hong Kong to explore opportunities before securing any local job offer. So it is also noteworthy that Hong Kong, being a global financial center, is an advantage for companies across the whole spectrum, from startup to IPO. For biotechnology-related companies, Hong Kong provides special attraction. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange now allows IPO of pre-revenue biotechnology companies to list. Over 20 biotechnology companies have already listed in the Hong Kong Exchange since the launch of this new biotech chapter in 2018. Hong Kong is a business-friendly city, ranking number 3 in the world for ease of doing business by the World Bank in 2020. On top of a simple and low tax system, new policies and funding continue to be directed at facilitating the development of a more vibrant environment for innovation and technology, as well as research and development. So if you're interested in Hong Kong, the mainland China market, especially the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, as well as the Asia Pacific markets, we in the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in San Francisco would be very happy to talk to you and provide assistance. So thank you again, Rebecca. I'll pass the time back to you. Thank you.
Good. So how about a Chinese New Year celebration? Are you going to be doing your usual Chinese New Year celebration in San Francisco?
Oh, it will be far from usual. It's, first of all, the family is probably going to be hunkered down still. But we will, I think we're planning something at the office, maybe a virtual spring reception. We'll see.
Okay. All right. We always look forward to that. So thank you. Thank you, Jacko, for that explanation, description of all the great things that are happening there in the Hong Kong startup scene. So, and next, I would like to welcome William Chung, who's here on the screen, along with Carrie Chan. So Carrie, I hope that you heard the shout out I gave you to Ray Lane, the venture capitalist at the beginning of our program.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, that could be a really good connection for you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, and William, you're here from the Hong Kong Science and Technology
Yes,
Park.
I am, yeah.
And Carrie is here from Avant Meets, which is, you can see here, I put up a little slide of what that's all about. I hope it doesn't make you too hungry, but it's not really fish. It's some protein that Carrie's going to tell us about that she's invented. So Carrie, you're the founder of this company. I mean, what does it do and how did you invent it and why did you invent it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rebecca, for having us today on your show. Avant Meat, we're the biotech company working on the cultivated meat technology, the very first one in China. And what we do actually, we basically skip the intermediary of the animal body to convert animal feed to the meat or the meat tissue, the animal proteins, that we basically, what we eat in food in terms of meat is basically the muscle from animal, etc. So we basically skip the animal, which is the converting machine in the middle. We directly feed the nutrient on the cellular level and feed the cell directly. And then we eat the meat in a much efficient way, much shorter time for the conversion and higher efficiency of conversion. Traditional animal agriculture, it could be, the efficiency could be as low as about 10–15%. So that's why we're wasting a lot of the energy, natural resources in the system. So by skipping that, we can actually do it in a much better way. And on top of that, because we do not have the animals spending time in a potentially environment that could be exposed to pollutants, contaminant, and then we can actually safeguard our food supply chain, traceability and everything much better. So this is what we do. I started out, why it attracted my attention is that I have been vegan for about 5 years, and I find that, of course, I happily remove meat from my plate, but I find that traditionally, social, cultural preferences, and etc., we're still away time from turning primarily plant-based. So I do see a lot of excitement in myself when I come across this technology. We can skip the sustainability, the environmental impact of the conventional meat production, and safer, cleaner, more efficient way of doing this, and then we can still enjoy meat. That's a very important part. Okay. So that's how we started that in 2018.
And William, do you have a question for Carrie, since you know her from the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park? She's based there. Do you have a question for her?
Yes, of course. I'm just asking on behalf of many people who don't eat fish like me. So I know fish is good for health, but I just don't like the taste. So I was just curious about whether or not your fish fillet does taste like fish, and whether or not the nutrients is retained.
Right. Yeah, very good question. So in this case, the cell that we cultivate is the same, down to the genetic level, biochemical level. Of course, the nutrient level is the same as the cell that we find on the piece of, it could be pork, beef, chicken, in this case, fish. So the nutritional profile is the same. So in terms of the flavor, in terms of the smell and taste, of course, the cell, the protein from the fish itself contain certain, the fish flavor and fish taste. However, I think a lot of people that we don't like the fish flavor is because of the breakdown of the certain animal protein by bacteria, and then that lead to some, strong fishy smell. So in this product that we have prepared as a prototype, we have the flavor of the fish, but not strong, and definitely because it's produced in a very sterilized environment. So we do not have a lot of exposure to the environment, the bacteria that would break down the protein into, fishy taste kind of molecule. So I think it would help quite a bit of people to overcome that. So for those of us who actually enjoy the fish taste, it is actually quite adjustable, because various way that we can actually pack and also formulate the product, including the nutritional profile. We can actually customize that for different product applications.
Yeah, Carrie, what's your background? You a scientist or?
Yeah, well, yeah, I actually from business background, but I am originally trained as an architect. Have been in the property development for close to 2 decades. However, there's a lot of transferable skills, including how do we take a investment opportunity? It could be a piece of land, and how do we come up with the strategy, the whole scheme, the product mix, the product, the people like, put a plan together, put a team together, as well as managing the financial resources, overseeing the implementation, time, quality control, program, budget control to the end product, which is revenue generating assets. In a previous life, my previous professional life is a residential property or is a hotel. In this case, a lot of them actually transferable to managing a business, to convert it from a concept to actually an operation that we can generate, product and revenues.
Okay, so where was the research generated?
Well, so we're based in Hong Kong Science Park. So the fundamental scientific principle already existed for a number of years, like growing animal cells, cultivating that outside of animal bodies has been practiced for, decades of time. But then we haven't done that for the food application, which the novelty include how to do the cell cultivation in a much larger scale, drastically reduce the cost, as well as, do it, in a very efficient way without using animal component in the cell cultivation. So these are the core R&D that we're doing. We also have several patent pending solutions and that help us to commercialize in late 2021, early 2022.
Okay, and what's your venture cap? What about your financing of this startup?
Yeah, we are actually very, very fortunate, very grateful to have the support of a very savvy investor already actively in this alternative protein space, including Lever VC, including CPT Capital, and a number of strategic investors in the animal traditional aquaculture field. So we get that early on, yeah.
Are you looking for financing?
Yeah, definitely. So I hear some of the other, founders, startup always fundraising anytime. So we have closed our seed round in actually November. It actually should have closed a bit earlier because of the COVID. It has extended a little bit. So we closed about $3.1 million seed fundraising. And then because we have already delivered another set of milestones, much closer to our pilot production. So we're actually ramping up to our Series A. So we'll be happy to speak with VC and investor who are looking into this space.
Okay. William, do you have anything to add? I mean, how does Carrie compare to other entrepreneurs there at the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks?
I think Carrie and her company is definitely one of the rising star at our science park and also in Hong Kong. Alternative meat in this space is very promising, I think, and definitely keeping up the space.
Okay, well, good. Continued good luck and fortune to you, Carrie, and keep up the good work there, William, at the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks. I'm going to move on now to our next, and also our round of applause to you, everyone chime in.
Thank you.
Okay, so next.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have you here. So I would like to introduce, and everybody, you can turn on your cameras now if you want to just say goodbye. Everybody say goodbye. Everybody who has been on the program, turn your cameras on so we can all see one another and say goodbye, good night, good morning, whatever. So I do want to say that our next show is really going to be a very exciting one with John Chambers. He is the former CEO of Cisco, and now he's a venture capitalist at JC2 Ventures. That's going to be really great. He's also has a book out, Connecting the Dots, which I've been reading. It's fascinating. And I recommend that. And I recommend the other one, Trampled by Unicorns, that we already had on our show. And of course, my own Titans of China. Okay. And then after January 21st at 4 p.m., we're going to have Brad Smith. Brad Smith is executive chairman of Intuit. He really has, and for those in the US who know TurboTax, that's Intuit, right? And QuickBooks. So we all know those products. Then he is now heading up the Wing to Wing Foundation, which is really interesting. What they're trying to do is instill a startup culture in more places of the world outside of Silicon Valley. So Brad's going to be great. Yeah, so everyone, I see all your I'm going to stop the share so we can sound a little bit like stop the steal, stop the steal, but I said stop the share. Okay, stop the share. Any final thoughts from anyone? Okay. Thank you again to our
Happy New Year. Looking forward to the Chinese New Year. So
yeah,
it's rolling right along.
Yeah,
it's a great program. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, Year of the Ox. I think it's my year. Yeah, I wish it were the dragon year, but it's the ox year, but it's okay. So thank you, David, for your support. Thank you, Jacko, for your support. William, for your support. Darren from KPMG and Cyberport for your support as well. We did have a Cyberport entrepreneur on the program, but unfortunately he had a family emergency, so we lost one. Sorry about that, folks, but we'll get him back on later in the year. So thank you again, everyone, and good night, and see you on our next program. And
thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca.
Please join the Silicon Dragon Circle, because that gets you access to all of our programs for the full year. Circle membership right there. Silicon Dragon Ventures. You just go on and click away. Okay. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week, next Thursday with John Chambers. Okay, take care.
Ciao.
All right,
Okay,
bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.